Two separate House panels debated yesterday over the presence of extremism in the U.S. military and the rise in domestic terrorism, both of which were highlighted during the January 6th Capitol attack. It comes as more former military and domestic extremist group members are being charged for their roles in the deadly riot by the day. Joining us now, two lawmakers that oversaw those discussions. Chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Adam Smith. Also with us, a member of that committee and chairwoman of the Intelligence and Counterterrorism Subcommittee, Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin of Michigan. She previously served as a Middle East analyst for the CIA. Great to have you both.
Adam, thanks so much for being with us. I'm curious what you're finding now. We've heard for a few years concerns about extremism in military, in America's armed forces. How widespread is the problem?
Well, we don't know, and that's a starting point. But Secretary Austin has made it clear that this is a challenge in the ranks. He talked about, during his testimony when he was being confirmed, it was really compelling testimony about what it was like coming up in the military as a black man and where it's gone and some of the things that he encountered. There is no question, as we've seen across the country in the last 4 years, with the rise of white nationalism, the rise of white supremacy, and a troubling crossover, not just in the January 6th riots, so that certainly is the greatest example of it, but in many instances where you have members of the military who are part of these groups. And what we discovered in the hearing yesterday is the military really hasn't done that much at the moment to find out, who might be affiliated with these groups within the military. So what we want to do right now is at least, dive into the problem. And with the Republicans yesterday, part of the problem in their response was they took on the role of sort of defense attorneys and say, well, if you can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, why are we talking about it? I think there is enough evidence right now of the problem. We've seen it across the country. There is considerable evidence that within the ranks of the military, we have issues with racism. We need to figure out what they are, how they're being addressed. This is really crucial to making sure we have our military as strong as possible. So we're at the beginning of this, but we need to find out what the problem is and then what the best way to handle it is. I think it's a crucial role for our committee to do that.
Congresswoman Slotkin, what are we finding out about the people who were at the riot, the people being charged? And maybe it's impatience, media impatience, but why is it so hard to make a deduction here on what exactly was going on? Because it does kind of seem so basic.
Well, we reacting to the fact that a disproportionate number of the truly organized, truly prepared folks who came in the Capitol on January 6th, who intended, we believe, to come in the Capitol long before the morning of January 6th, had a military background. They were either in the military or veterans of the military. And so I think we've seen that in the arrest reports. Listen, it has to be methodical. And I don't think it's a secret anymore that there's overlapping law enforcement agencies that have an interest in what goes on at the Capitol. So, maybe it seems like it's taking a long time. What I think is taking a long time is that we don't have agreement on a 9/11 style commission. Truly sort of stand back, objective, bipartisan look at what happened. I think we need that. And that's been kind of frustrating to a number of members that we haven't been able to come to agreement on getting started on that.
That's such a good point. And Joe, we can't even agree on the fact that this needs to be investigated. We can't even agree that this requires a 9/11 style commission to look at a mass assault on our democracy in process. I don't know. Where are we if we can't do that?
Well, first of all, it does need to be bipartisan.
Of course.
The proposal.
Why wouldn't it be?
The proposal that was put forward would have put 7 Democrats on the committee and 4 Republicans. That's not going to work. You can reverse that to 7 Republicans, 4 Democrats. That wouldn't work. The House and the Senate are split 50-50. They need to figure out how to get 6 Republicans and 6 Democrats on the committee. 6 Republicans and 6 Democrats can be like jury selection. Like they can have a right to dismiss certain members there, and they can keep the wingnuts and the backbenchers who are going to be doing this for press clippings rather than getting to the truth. They can veto those members. But again, they need to move forward with a 9/11 style commission. and they need to do it in a bipartisan manner. And I can't believe there aren't enough adults in leadership in the Republican and the Democratic Party to figure out how to put your country first and get that done. And there's so many questions to ask. And one of those questions, we just put it up on the screen, Chairman Smith, is the fact that 20% of the people that rioted on January the 6th reportedly are former members of the United States military.
Yeah, and that is deeply disturbing, and that's big part of the reason why we had the hearing yesterday. But I think what came out of our hearing yesterday gives you a little bit of insight as to why we're having so much trouble get this commission formed. The Republican response, whenever we start talking about this, is to equate this with this, the right-wing noise machine talking about, woke. Excessive wokeism, if you will, the idea that we're going to go out and persecute people just for something they thought or just for something they said. That's certainly where Matt Gaetz and others went yesterday, is the idea that you're even going to try to address the riot on Capitol Hill, that you're going to try to address right-wing extremism, or what we've seen in the battle over voting rights. They claim that their effort to shut people down from voting is to stop the rise of this unfair left-wing, sort of mythical attack that they have in their head. And as long as they focus on that and say everything we try to do is just excessive, it's not. We are trying to get at a very real problem. And I will say this. I know there are Republicans, certainly on our committee, most bipartisan committee in Congress, but elsewhere, who want to address this. But the pull of the Trump people to make it into a deep-seated partisan political fight, no matter what we say, to sort of wish the problem away, to imagine that white nationalism, white supremacy, that this doesn't exist, it's a very strong pull that the Trump people are doing. And it makes it difficult to get to that common sense bipartisan agreement.
Congresswoman Slotkin, this is obviously extremely important work to identify those in the military that hold extremist beliefs or racist beliefs. Forgive the perhaps overly simple question, but what can be done about it? What can be done to prevent people like that from being in the military? What sort of steps or screening can be done to weed out people who have these sort of beliefs in the armed forces?
Well, first of all, I do want to say that there are some regulations, rules already on the books, right? It's not an open season for anyone who wants to join the military. I visited, I can't tell you how many recruiting stations in and around Michigan. And, if you've got a swastika tattoo when you come in for your physical exam to try and get into the military, that's going to be a flag. That's going to be something that's going to potentially be prohibitive. It should be prohibitive. So there are rules. I think we need better data collection. And then, frankly, I just don't see a better person than General Austin to be the one who leads on this issue. He's already had a one-day stand down for the entire force to talk about this issue. I've heard from people who went through that. But, someone who grew up not only as a Black man, but who was involved in uncovering nests of skinheads, in the 82nd Airborne, this is someone who has real experience with this. So I'm going to let him have the time that he needs to tackle it. But I think what I got the impression from yesterday, from my colleagues across the aisle, is one, a real reluctance to even look at this issue. And it made me think, if, we have been so focused over the past 20 years on rooting out people in the military who might have a link to a foreign terrorist group, who might be sympathetic to an Al-Qaeda message, to an ISIS message. We have been hyper-focused on that. So why can't we take the same vigor and energy and put it into rooting out people who might be white supremacists?
Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin and Congressman Adam Smith, thank you both very much for everything you're doing and for being on the show this morning.
Greatly appreciate it. Richard Haas, I've been reading over the past year